The Hive Within. A violent thunderstorm drenches a secluded cabin in the Louisiana Bayou. Sarah, a weary American woman in her 30s, sits at a wooden table lit by a single candle. Before her is an ancient, barnacle-crusted ceramic jar found in the swamp. Flashback. Sarah's husband, Mark, driving away with a younger woman, laughing. Flashback. Sarah being served eviction papers by a cold-faced lawyer. Sarah bites her palm until it bleeds, her face twisted in a mask of rage. She presses her bleeding palm onto the jar's lid, wetting the ancient seal. The blood is absorbed instantly into the clay with a hungry, slurping sound. A rhythmic, wet scratching begins to vibrate from within the jar. Sarah recites a translation of a forbidden ritual she found in an old diary. The lid of the jar cracks open, releasing a cloud of sulfurous yellow gas. Thousands of tiny, red-eyed beetles begin to pour over the sides. They do not scatter into the room. They crawl onto Sarah's arms. Sarah gasps as the beetles begin to bite, burrowing halfway into her skin. Her veins turn a neon black color, pulsing with an unnatural rhythm. The next morning, Sarah stares into the bathroom mirror. Her pupils are vibrating. She finds a cluster of insect eggs growing under her tongue. She swallows them whole, feeling a surge of dark energy in her gut. Sarah drives into town, stopping at the diner where Mark is having breakfast. She leaves a small, grease-stained paper bag on the hood of his truck. Inside the bag is a piece of raw liver infested with a Jidu wasp. Mark finds the bag, curses, and throws it into the bed of his truck. A tiny, invisible stinger pricks his wrist as he touches the bag. Mark's wrist immediately swells to twice its size, turning a bruised green. In her own car, Sarah feels a stinging pain in her wrist, a shared pain. She laughs, a sound that ends in a dry, clicking noise in her throat. That night, Mark's fever spikes to 105 degrees. He feels things moving in his ears. Sarah sits in her dark living room, beginning the second malt ritual. She pours a gallon of spoiled milk onto the floor, summoning the swarm. Thousands of cockroaches emerge from the floorboards, forming a circle around her. Sarah chants, in a voice that sounds like two pieces of sandpaper rubbing together. The cockroaches begin to feed on her hair, clipping it short with their mandibles. Mark at home begins to cough up thick, black bile filled with wings. He runs to the sink, but the water coming out of the tap is full of mosquito larvae. He looks in the mirror and sees Sarah's face superimposed over his own. He tries to scream, but a large beetle crawls out of his throat, choking him. Sarah feels the beetle's movements inside her own throat, a shared sensation. She uses a shard of glass to carve the hive mark into her chest. The blood that spills is no longer red. It is a thick, black nectar. An old neighbor, Silas, knocks on her door, sensing a rot in the air. He smells the stench of 1,000 decaying hives and backs away in fear. Sarah opens the door. Her skin is now translucent and waxy. Silas sees a centipede crawl out of Sarah's tear duct and into her eye. Sarah slams the door, her strength now 3 times that of a normal human. She retreats to the basement, where the mother Geoa, massive, bloated moth waits. The moth crawls into Sarah's mouth, sliding down into her stomach. Sarah's abdomen distends painfully, her skin stretching until it nearly rips. She is now the living incubator for the swarm's royalty. Mark is rushed to the hospital, his body covered in weeping, black sores. Doctors find that his bones are being replaced by a honeycomb structure. He is becoming a living hive, a biological prison for the Jiu. Sarah feels his bones cracking and reforming, her own body twitching in sync. She begins to spin a thick, gray silk from her fingertips. She wraps the entire basement in this webbing, creating a massive cocoon. Inside the cocoon, Sarah's human features begin to melt and soften. Her ears fall off, replaced by sensitive, feathery antennae. At the hospital, Mark's chest cavity bursts open during surgery. A swarm of blood locusts pours out, attacking the surgical team. The hospital is plunged into a lockdown as the insects clog the vents. Sarah, in her cocoon, feels the first kill of her children. She experiences a rush of predatory euphoria that erases her guilt. She begins to lose the ability to think in English. She thinks in buzzes. The mother GU begins to lay eggs directly into Sarah's muscle tissue. Sarah's joints begin to reverse, her knees snapping backward like a cricket's. Outside the cabin, the local sheriff arrives to investigate Silas's report. He finds the cabin covered in a pulsating, organic moss. As he touches the doorknob, a million tiny gnats fly into his nostrils. He falls to the ground, his brain being eaten by the mindworm G. Sarah hears his dying thoughts through the hive mind. She realizes the power she holds is not just for revenge, but for dominion. The moon rises over the bayou, turning a deep, blood-red color. Sarah's cocoon begins to pulsate with a rhythmic, golden light. The sound of wings fills the forest, silencing the birds and frogs. Mark's body in the hospital is now a hollow shell, filled with larvae. The larvae hatch simultaneously, turning him into a walking hive. He stands up, a shambling corpse, controlled by the insects within. He begins to walk toward the cabin, drawn by Sarah's pheromones. Sarah's human skin begins to itch and crack along her spine. She feels a desperate need to emerge into her true form. She bites through the silk of her cocoon with newly grown mandibles. Her first breath of air smells like copper and honey. She has 4 spindly, armored arms and eyes with 1,000 lenses. She looks at her discarded human face on the floor and feels nothing. She is no longer Sarah. She is the Blight Queen. The walking hive Mark arrives at the cabin and kneels before her. She places a clawed hand on his head, whispering her first hive command. Spread. She clicks, her voice a vibration in the air. The swarm rises from the cabin, a black cloud that blots out the stars. They head toward the city, seeking fresh soil for their eggs. Sarah stands atop her cabin, her wings unfolding for the very first time. The swarm hits the outskirts of the city, clogging car engines and streetlights. Sarah flies high above, her compound eyes seeing the heat signatures of thousands of victims. She targets a high-rise apartment complex, first a vertical hive. The walking hive enters the lobby, insects pouring out of its mouth like a fountain. People in the elevator are trapped as silk spiders seal the doors shut. Sarah lands on the roof, her weight cracking the concrete helipad. She plunges her ovipositor into the building's water tank on the roof. She releases millions of microscopic water GU eggs into the building's pipes. Residents drinking the water feel an immediate, cold movement in their stomachs. Within minutes, a businessman in 4B begins to sprout wings from his neck. The transformation is agonizing. The GU magic forces the body to reshape in seconds. Sarah feels every transformation, her power growing with every new drone. The city's emergency sirens begin to wail, but the insects have already chewed through the wires. A news chopper tries to film the swarm, but Sarah flies up and shears through the tail rotor with her claws. The helicopter crashes into a gas station, but the explosion doesn't kill the insects. It only disperses them. Sarah enters the luxury penthouse where Mark's lover, Elena, is hiding. Elena screams, clutching a cross. But Sarah just tilts her head curiously. Mark sent me. Sarah clicks, her voice coming from the insects in the room. She doesn't kill Elena. She chooses her to be the nursery. Sarah spits a thick, umber resin onto Elena, paralyzing her instantly. Thousands of nursery beetles begin to burrow into Elena's skin to lay eggs. The police department attempts a raid on the building using tear gas. The insects breathe in the gas and convert it into a toxic pheromone. The officers begin to hallucinate that their skin is made of maggots. They start to peel their own skin off in a maddened frenzy. Sita watches from the shadows of the hallway, her bioluminescence glowing red. She realizes the military will come soon with fire, the only thing she fears. She commands the swarm to begin the great burrowing. Millions of insects begin to dig into the city's foundations. Sarah moves into the subway tunnels, turning them into her personal throne room. She hangs hundreds of Meatsack's paralyzed humans from the ceiling. They're being kept alive as a food source for the newly hatched larvae. Sarah begins to lose the last fragments of her set. She forgets the concept of love and replaces it with efficiency. The military arrives at the city limits, deploying chemical sprays. Sarah counters by creating a living fog of microscopic gnats that jam their filters. Soldiers choke on their own masks as the gnats crawl into their lungs. Within the fog, the warrior geomassive, 6-legged beasts begin their hunt. They rip through the armored vehicles like they are made of cardboard. Sarah sits on a throne of bone and silk in the subway, pulsating with eggs. She produces a general, a massive insect with Sarah S.'s human face stretched over its head. She sends the general to lead the ground assault against the army. The general speaks in Sarah's old voice. "We are the new world." The soldiers are terrified to see a monster that sounds like a woman. One soldier manages to throw a white phosphorus grenade into the tunnel. Sarah screams as the fire burns through her telepathic link with her drones. The pain is a white-hot spear in her brain. She realizes the mother Jiu inside her is actually a parasite feeding on her too. For a moment, Hyun Sara wakes up and sees the horror she has created. She looks at the meat sacks on the ceiling and recognizes a neighbor. She tries to stop the larvae from feeding, but her body refuses to move. The mother, Jiu, asserts control, flooding Sarah's brain with compliance chemicals. Sarah's human eyes are pushed out by larger, blacker compound eyes. She is now 100% Hive. There is no Sarah left, only the Queen. She begins the final brood ritual, which requires the heart of a traitor. She has the swarm bring Silas, the old neighbor who tried to warn her. Silas looks at her with pity, not fear. "You, poor girl," he whispers. The Queen rips his heart out with a swift, cold motion. She feeds the heart to the king larva, growing in her own chest. The king larva is a flying nightmare, designed to spread the GU to other continents. The city's skyscrapers begin to lean as the foundations are eaten away. The sky is a constant, shifting mass of wings and stingers. The military declares the city a lost zone and prepares for a nuclear strike. The Queen senses the great fire coming from the sky. She begins to lead her swarm deep into the Earth's crust. They dig through the subway floors, deeper into the dark mud. But the mother GU wants to stay and fight the fire. A conflict begins between the Queen's survival instinct and the mother GU's aggression. The Queen's body begins to tear itself apart from the internal stress. Black ichor leaks from her joints, melting the ground beneath her. She realizes the only way to survive is to shed the mother GU. She begins a self-mutilation ritual to remove the parasite from her stomach. The swarm outside becomes chaotic, attacking each other without guidance. The military's bombers are 5 minutes away from the target zone. Sarah's general is killed by a tank shell, its face melting into the asphalt. The Queen finally rips the mother Jew out, a screaming, multi-headed worm. She crushes it beneath her heel, ending the primary source of the infection. But she is still the Queen. She still has millions of children. She uses her last bit of strength to weave a lead silk shield around her hive. The shield is designed to withstand the heat and radiation of the coming blast. The nuclear bomb detonates over the city center. A white-hot dome of fire vaporizes the skyscrapers in a heartbeat. The insects on the surface are turned to ash instantly. Sarah, deep underground, feels the shockwave rattle her very soul. The lead silk holds, but the heat is unbearable. She goes into a state of anabiosis, a deep, death-like sleep. Her body hardens into a statue of black glass. The millions of drones around her also freeze in place. The city above becomes a radioactive wasteland, silent and dead. But deep, deep below, a single heartbeat echoes in the dark. 50 years have passed. The city is now a forest of twisted, rusted metal, a group of scavengers, survivors from the outer lands. The ruins, they wear lead-lined suits and carry Geiger counters. They find a deep hole in the center of the ruins, leading to the old subway. One scavenger, a young man named Leo, finds a statue of a four-armed woman. He brushes the dust off Sarah's black glass face. The heat from his gloved hand causes a small crack in the glass. A single, golden eye opens behind the crack. Sarah the Queen wakes up, her hunger now 50 years old. She doesn't kill Leo. She realizes she needs a new ancestor. She reaches out and touches Leo's helmet, her finger melting the glass. She whispers through his mind, "Welcome home, my son." The glass statues around them begin to crack and move. The swarm is not dead. It was only waiting for a new source of energy. The radiation has mutated the insects into They now glow with a beautiful, deadly blue light. Leo's team tries to run, but the subway exits are blocked by glass silk. Sarah stands up, her glass skin shedding to reveal a body made of pure light. She has evolved beyond physical flesh. She is now a being of spectral G. She begins to possess the scavengers, her insects entering their suits. They don't die. They become lightwalkers, immortal, glowing drones. Sarah looks up at the surface. She wants the sun again. She leads her glowing army out of the hole and into the ruined city. They look like angels from a distance, but their touch is rot. Sarah finds a small flower growing in the radiation, the same kind she had at her cabin. For a moment, a memory of Mark and her old life flickers in her mind. She realizes that her revenge led to the end of the world she knew. She feels a profound loneliness that the hive mind cannot fill. She decides to use her power to regrow the world in her own image. She begins to plant geoseeds in the soil, which grow into massive, insectoid trees. The trees breathe out oxygen infused with hives. Any animal that breathes the air is slowly converted into a part of her ecosystem. A new type of forest begins to cover the ruins of the United States. Sarah sits on a throne of glowing vines, watching her new world bloom. She creates a memory drone, a creature that looks exactly like her human self. She sends the memory Sarah to wander the woods, singing old American songs. It is a haunting, beautiful sight. A woman in a sundress, walking through a monster forest. Other scavenger tribes see her and follow her, thinking she is a goddess. They bring her offerings of old world relics, books, jewelry, photos. Sarah looks at a photo of a wedding and feels a strange, cold tear fall from her eye. To tear is a pearlgy, which hatches into a tiny, white butterfly. This butterfly carries the soul of Sarah. It flies away from the queen, seeking a place where the GU has not reached. The queen watches it go, knowing it is her only weakness. She sends her light walkers to catch it, but the butterfly is too fast. The butterfly reaches a small valley, protected by an ancient stone circle. Inside the circle, a small group of humans lives without technology or magic. They see the white butterfly and think it is an omen of peace. The butterfly lands on a young girl's shoulder and whispers the truth. It tells the girl the story of the jar, the revenge, and the queen. The girl realizes that as long as the queen lives, the world is a beautiful cage. She decides to find the original jar, the only thing that can trap the queen. The girl journeys to the radioactive ruins, guided by the white butterfly. She finds the queen's throne room and sees the monster Sarah has become. The queen sees the girl and recognizes the soul butterfly. "You have come to kill your mother." The queen vibrates. The girl doesn't attack. She shows the queen a mirror she found in the ruins. Sarah looks into the mirror and sees the spectral horror she is. The hive mind tries to shatter the mirror, but Sarah's human soul holds it together. Sarah realizes she is the GU that is poisoning the world. She decides to perform the ultimate shedding. She begins to pull all the GU energy from the trees, the animals, and the sky. The world begins to turn gray as the magic is sucked back into her. She becomes a massive, blinding sun of dark energy. "Hide," she whispers to the girl. Sarah collapses inward, creating a biological black hole. Every insect, every glowing vine, and every drone is pulled into her. The city ruins are scrubbed clean of the infestation in a terrifying instant. Sarah herself is compressed into a single, small ceramic jar. The jar is identical to the one she found in the bayou 50 years ago. The girl finds the jar sitting in the middle of a field of fresh, green grass. The radiation is gone. The air is sweet and clean. The girl picks up the jar and hears a faint, sorrowful humming inside. She takes the jar to the deepest part of the ocean and drops it. The jar sinks into the dark, cold trenches, settling into the mud. Years pass. Humanity rebuilds, forwarding the Blight Queen. New cities are built. New wars are fought. In the year 2150, a deep-sea mining drill hits something hard on the ocean floor. The drill snaps, and the camera reveals a cracked ceramic jar. A single, black bubble of air rises to the surface. On the surface, a luxury cruise ship is passing by. A woman named Emily is standing on the deck, crying over a broken heart. She sees a strange, beautiful black beetle crawl up the side of the ship, She picks it up, fascinated by its iridescent shell. The beetle bites her finger, and Emily gasps in surprise. Her eyes flicker with a faint, violet light. She looks at her reflection in the ocean and smiles a predatory smile. "I'll make him pay," she whispers. The sound of 1,000,000,000 wings begins to rise from the depths of the sea. Fade to black as a clicking sound of mandibles fills the speakers.